This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
I was trying to get it how I live. I want them dead presidents. I want to pull up, head spin, get fly. I got 6 jobs. I don't get time. I don't get time.
And welcome to episode number 18 of Two Bad Hombres. And we are not tired yet. Once again, here on this episode, I am Vito Jerome Turco alongside the Doc from Doc and Jock, as usual. That is John Charles Macaroon. John, how are you doing?
Vito, welcome to the weekend. Always enjoy having a conversation with you. We got a stacked podcast, couple great interviews to start, and then we'll definitely talk about the happenings around the world, socially, entertainment-wise, sporting-wise, anything going on in our lives. That's what this podcast is about. Just about two old friends telling each other how much they hate each other and
Absolutely.
how much they wish they could not spend the time together. But hey, if I got to do a podcast with you, as much as I hate it, I'll still do it with you.
Oh, you're so nice at the end of the day.
Who we got on this podcast? Who have we lined up?
Well, I lined up now Detroit Mercy women's basketball coach Bernard Scott, and you lined up who?
Ryan Schuiling, 92.1 FM Lansing. We have to talk about some of the news and notes in the entertainment world. His radio program in Lansing is unbelievable, and when you get a chance to listen, it's enjoyable. He does great interviews, and he's a guest that I always enjoy talking to. So with the happenings going on in the media and what's going on nationally, I want to talk to somebody that's in the know and get a sense of what's going on in the media and what is it like to work at a radio station. And Ryan is so kind. I texted him earlier today, and he's willing to give us some time and talk about working in the media.
And Ryan will talk to us about the struggles and challenges of working in the media, stuff that you and I really don't know about, Doc, right now entirely.
So let's dial up Coach. I'm looking forward to this conversation with Coach Scott from the University of Detroit Mercy, coaches the women's basketball team.
And now joining me on this episode of Two Bad Hombres is Detroit Mercy women's basketball head coach Bernard Scott. Coach Scott, how's it going?
It's going great. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us. And first and foremost, we have to reflect on your great second season on the job, where your Titans went 9-0 at home during Horizon League play and reached the Horizon League title game for the first time since the 2011-2012 campaign. And once again, you accomplished all of this in only your second season on the job, after going 15-5 overall and 11-7 in Horizon League play last season. How much does it say, your progress from year one to year number 2, say about how far the program has already come since you took over the job?
Yeah, I'm very excited about what we've done in the 2 years I've been here. You know, we have a great group of young ladies. They've really bought into our culture, the culture that we're building, and it's really helped us to, have 2 great seasons. This year was unbelievable. I actually believe we dropped a few games we shouldn't have dropped. It probably cost us getting into postseason, but I was very happy to be playing in the championship game in the second year, and also to have another winning season, to get 18 wins with the schedule that we have put together, and to see a lot of our players do so well, like Rosanna Reynolds and Haley Rostowski and, all of those guys. So it was a great year.
And as you said, you reached the Horizon League title game, and it was played at Joe Louis Arena, meaning that you guys played in the final women's basketball game ever at the Joe. You did fall short, I know, of punching a ticket to the NCAA tournament, falling to top-seeded Green Bay in the championship game. And Green Bay, the Phoenix, it seems like, Coach, are always there at the top and always messing with Detroit Mercy and the rest of the Horizon League and getting the best of everybody in the conference at the end of the season at least. What do you think, Coach, it will ultimately take to dethrone the Phoenix?
Well, I think it's going to take confidence. What happened to us in the championship game, I think the pressure of the game got to a few of our young ladies. And, unfortunately for us, we haven't been in that position as much as Green Bay has, We did beat Green Bay earlier in the season at Callahan Hall, so we knew we were capable of beating them. I just think the atmosphere and the championship game kind of got to some of our players. But hopefully we're in that position again in years to come, and we'll be prepared.
Detroit Mercy women's basketball head coach Bernard Scott on the line with me here on Two Bad Hombres. Speaking of Green Bay, Is there anything for you that you take into account with you about Green Bay when you enter recruiting and you recruit players to come to play at Detroit Mercy? Anything that comes into your mind about Green Bay and how its roster is structured when you do recruit players to come and play at Detroit Mercy?
No, to be honest with you, we recruit players that fit our style of play, that fits our culture. And, Green Bay has been at the top of the league, but we believe if we continue to recruit the right players for our system and the right person, we're going to be okay in the Horizon League and have opportunity of winning.
Now, obviously, the new arena, Little Caesars, is going to host the Horizon League, both men's and women's tournaments. Have you had a chance to tour the arena? Anybody that we've talked to that has gone down there has just raved about what's going to happen in the fall when this arena opens up.
Oh, yes, I did. I had the opportunity to tour it. It's going to be a great place. I'm so excited that our young ladies will have the opportunity to play in that arena. And it's going to be a great venue. It's going to be great for downtown Detroit. I can't wait till it's done. I can't wait to see the finished product. But, yes, it's going to be an amazing place.
That should be very exciting to play at Little Caesars Arena. And it's also, I know, very exciting always when you beat Oakland, and especially twice in a single season. And you guys did that this past season, Coach Scott. And
we did.
How much significance does that carry for you and your squad when you're able to accomplish that against Oakland?
Well, it's huge. I mean, we all know that Detroit Mercy and Oakland is a big rivalry, and anytime you can knock those guys off is good, not only for your program but for the university. We've been fortunate enough to win the last 3 games against Oakland and hopefully can keep that going. But, yeah, it's exciting for our players because a lot of our players have played against Oakland's players, and it's a real rivalry, I tell you. I don't think their players like us, and our players don't like them that much either. So I'm happy that we've been so successful against them in my 2 years here.
Do you think your players get up more for those games against Oakland too because of that bitter rivalry and the nature of hatred between you and Oakland?
They definitely get up. I believe they get up for every game, but that game is extra special to some of our players. And, Rosanna Reynolds has had great games against Oakland. I think she really looks forward to them, and she's graduating actually. So we'll see who steps up next year versus those guys.
Rosie was capable of producing and getting it done against everybody all throughout her career at Detroit Mercy. And she was honored at the end of the season banquet as a team MVP and very deserving of that honor, obviously, as you know, Coach. And she is leaving you guys, but she leaves the Titans as the first player in school history with 1,500 career points, 500 career rebounds, and 500 career assists. How would you describe the impact she had on the program over her time at Detroit Mercy?
Well, I think she had a huge impact on the program since she arrived at Detroit Mercy, and she had a great career here for us. And, the one thing I've preached since I've gotten here is that we're a team, and that's how we win, that's how we lose. And fortunately for us, even with Rosie being our best player, it took the entire team for us to have 2 winning seasons in a row. So, even with her leaving and Haley leaving and Kelsey leaving, I believe we're still going to be okay because our players have been put in a position to have to, score and rebound and do the things that Rosie was able to do all 4 years.
And I read that she also broke the career mark in dimes and in career starts as well. Pretty darn impressive stuff. And I'm thinking now, Coach, she has to have her jersey number retired. How about getting that number 11 jersey maybe raised to the rafters at Callahan Hall one day?
Well, that's not my decision, but I think she's done enough to definitely be a Hall of Famer here and possibly have her number retired. And she's going to go down, if not the best, one of the best players to ever play here at Detroit Mercy. So I'm sure our administration will show her the respect she deserves once that time comes.
And, Coach, with all of my guests that join Doc and I on Too Bad Hombres and on my other podcast, I always have to look into their Twitter handles and what they have. And I read one of your tweets, and very interesting to me. I want to get your thoughts on it, too. It read as follows: One thing I have learned since becoming a head coach is always surrounding yourself with people you can trust. So let me ask you straight up here. Why is that so key?
Well, I think, being a first-time head coach, it's been important for me to have assistant coaches that basically have my back. And when I'm not around, I know they're saying the right things. But not only my assistants, my GAs, I just want to make sure that everyone I have involved with our program is in it for the same reasons that I'm in it for. And that's for the kids and that's for the program. So, I think I've hired some very trustworthy assistants and GAs, and that's another reason I feel we've been successful, because we don't have any drama within the staff or within the program, and that helps to keep our focus on just basketball.
And, Coach, when I think of success in women's college basketball, it's always Uconn that comes first in my head. And what they've accomplished under Gino Auriemma, had a win streak of 111 games. I mean, that's astounding in itself. I mean, what an accomplishment there for that program. And, it came to an end against Mississippi State in the Final Four this past season. I really was rooting on Mississippi State to get it done. I wanted to ask you, were you of that mindset that you wanted to see UConn's win streak end there against Mississippi State?
Well, to be honest with you, I just wanted to see a good game. I think women's basketball needed a Final Four like it had this year, where the games were very competitive, and what Mississippi State was able to do to knock UConn off was good, I believe. I believe it gave us that upset that we've never had in women's basketball. So for me, I was just hoping for some good games, and we ended up getting a great one in that Mississippi State and UConn game, one that a lot of people will never forget.
111 games won in a row, but I still think, it's astounding. It's a head shaker, but I still think it wasn't great for the game of women's college basketball that UConn was so dominant game in and game out. And in many of the games, straight up dominance where they were blowing out their opponents. And I don't think that was good for the game of women's college basketball. How about yourself, Coach?
Well, I wouldn't say it wasn't good. I would say, Gino has built a program over there and a standard over at UConn that is second to none, and I think what you saw this year is programs really working to get to that level. And fortunately for Mississippi State, they had the team, and they had a team that believed they could get it done. But yeah, with Gino winning 111, that's a lot of games. I tell you what, I love to win 111 straight. And I don't think it was bad for basketball. I think he's just built something special over there, and now people are trying to get to that level.
Well, think about it. If you win 25 in a row or 50 in a row, you'd be a legend. 25 in a row would be a huge achievement. So, and they would have to build you a statue outside of Callahan Hall, Coach, if you won 25 games in a row, I think. But
yeah, that'd be great.
Now, Coach, I'm very curious as to recruitment. When you're sitting with a family and you're trying to recruit talented players, what kind of message are you giving? And can you share maybe an interesting story about recruitment?
Well, what I'm telling the parents and the recruits is that they're going to get a great overall experience here. It's not just about basketball, but they're going to get a great experience academically, socially. And with basketball, we're going to put them in a position to be successful. I think in the 2 years I've been here, you can tell that our players get better. You can tell that we put our players in a position where they're going to be successful on the basketball court. But we also sell to school. Detroit Mercy is a great school academically. We have a great president, a great athletic director. So, those are all good things. And 89% of our students go on to get full-time jobs right away once they graduate here, and that says a lot. And then the city of Detroit, what they're doing with downtown Detroit and bringing all the sports teams there, having all the sports teams downtown, that's just great for us as well. So that's basically what I tell them, and I tell them they're going to be part of a family atmosphere. They're going to be part of a culture that is together and part of a team that's trying to do something special here at Detroit Mercy.
Detroit Mercy is a great academic institution, and I know that from 4 years of undergrad studies at Detroit Mercy. And it means you have to be smart, and maybe a little bit smarter than it takes for you, John Macaroon, when you went to Michigan State. Sorry about that. John went to just throwing a little zinger there. But in the grand scheme of things, Detroit Mercy offers so much. It really does, Coach. And I know you know that as well. You're embracing it. And best of luck to you as well moving forward on the recruiting front and also in future seasons at Detroit Mercy.
Hey, thanks a lot, Vito. I really appreciate you guys having me. I enjoy coming on talking to you guys all the time.
Well, thank you much. Have a great day, Coach.
All right, thank you.
Ryan Schuiling, host of the Schuiling Report on 92.1 FM, The Team. What was your reaction when you heard the news of the firing of Matt Shephard, a longtime radio host, and it just seemed like he got succumbed by some of the cuts in the radio business?
I was devastated, guys, to put it in one word, because in my position as a Gen Xer, looking up to somebody like Matt Shephard, who came before me and went to Central Michigan University like I did and paid his dues and worked his ass off to get where he is, that has earned every opportunity. Nothing's been given to him. I mean, he is the template that I followed in developing my own show. You guys give me credit, and I really appreciate it. And anything I can do to help you out, I'd be happy to do in terms of what you guys are aiming to accomplish with what you're doing on the podcast here. But I can say the same thing about Matt Shephard, because he's been generous with his time and being accessible to somebody like me. And that means a lot, because I want to pay that forward. I want to encourage guys like you to pursue your dreams. And if that's in this business, so be it. But when somebody like Matt Shephard is treated in that way, who works as hard as he does and delivers the quality of work that he does, if there's not hope for somebody like Matt Shephard in this business, why am I in this business? That's the question I keep asking myself. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, I'm taking this firing of him harder than he is. He turned to me and said, Ryan, I appreciate the support, but, just make sure to diversify your portfolio, your skill set. Make sure you can do a whole lot of different things, and that's what he's doing, and why he's going to be okay, because he's doing the studio shows for Fox Sports Detroit, the play-by-play for Wolverines basketball, the play-by-play for Eastern Michigan football, the play-by-play for Lions preseason football. He's got his assets spread out to the point where he wasn't all invested in the morning radio program. But that being said, it was a vital part of his kind of income subset and how he provided for his family. And again, nobody worked harder than Matt Shephard. And if you watch the quality of his work, the preparation that he does, the intensity with which he treats the craft, the passion he shows, the questions he asks. I mean, I've called him this before, and I'll do it again till the end of time. He's a pro's pro. He's a guy that I can look at as a talk show host and go, that's what I want to do. That's how I want to be. That's how I want to conduct myself. And even in light of this very terrible news, he was able to keep it in perspective. Nobody died. Nobody got cancer. He's the one that told me that on my program today. That it's a job, life will go on. He's got his family, he's got his health, and when he talk in those terms, and he showed so much grace and dignity and professionalism. He came on my show today, guys. We're talking the day after he's let go. That's not an easy thing to do for anybody. I don't care how strong you are, but it shows the strength of his character and his work ethic that he was willing to come on. And although it was not a comfortable subject, and maybe there was some things he didn't want to get involved in terms of his former employer now, but he painted an interesting picture, and I would really recommend that everybody check it out if you haven't heard it already at SchuilingReport.com. It is worth your while to listen to it. And while Matt Shephard will be okay, I don't know that this business is going to be okay. Because, again, if we're having screamers, if we're having arguing about pocket squares and, this fluff and irrelevant radio, and we don't have that hardcore sports content that drives a lot of fans like you guys and myself, I fear for the future of this industry because it's heading in the wrong direction.
And for ESPN and the other stations, Ryan, it seems like what's going to go viral, right? And as you said, reach the most people and get the most clicks and all that. And going viral is going to be those first take segments where Stephen A is just screaming his lungs out at LeVar Ball across the table from him, which has already happened now. And it's not journalism, but it's entertainment, and they're trying to be entertaining and get as many eyeballs as possible, right, to their format and to their content. And I guess it's working with First Take, and maybe even with Skip and Shannon with Undisputed on FS1 now, which goes, head-to-head with First Take on weekday mornings.
Yeah, I mean, and again, these various channels, Fox Sports 1 is an example you just brought up, but MLB Network, NHL Network, NFL Network, NBA TV. You have ESPN used to have a monopoly on that kind of sports content, highlight shows, even to a large degree they got to that point with game broadcasts. Anything that ESPN did and anything they touched turned to gold. That's not automatic anymore. They know it. Their model is crumbling underneath them. They've made all these cuts. It's not going to stop there. There was an initial wave of cuts you guys might remember some time ago. This one happened this past Wednesday. Some more are trickling out. No doubt in my mind there are going to be more to follow. But then if you're an ESPN executive right now and you're sitting there going, well, how do we kind of compete and have a unique selling point or marketing position against these other avenues? And the thing that ESPN, I think, can pride itself on is it's the biggest name, it's the most recognizable brand, it's still the gold standard of sports broadcasting coverage. They've just got to, I think, try to be a little bit more innovative in how they deliver it and how they profit from that delivery. And I think the wave of the future, again, when I mentioned it earlier, podcasts, something like what you guys are doing right here, right now. My radio show is profiled as a podcast so that people have that portability. I don't know that the model of having satellite subscription television, cable subscription television for a bunch of channels, for a bundle and a package of channels is going to be the profitable way to go forward. I believe that they're going to have to go to a literal a la carte menu. You order channel by channel by channel, and you pay for ESPN, and you pay for Fox News or CNN. You pay for all the way down, and people are going to demand that. I think that's just the way that we're heading. And if cable and satellite television delivery mechanisms want to stay relevant, those subscriptions are getting canceled at record rates, and that's a big reason why ESPN had to make the cuts that they did. They've got to reinvent themselves into how they're available to the consumer, because that's what it all boils down to.
Now, Ryan, I'm also curious regarding the behind-the-scenes stuff with the talent's relationship with management. And I'm curious in that, do you feel like you have a good standing in talking to, program directors, upper management, salespeople? Do you feel like day-to-day you just got to do the best program that you can, work with the team, and let the chips fall where they may in terms of ratings, revenue, just try to do the best show that you can, develop strong relationships, and see what happens?
Again, a very insightful point you just made, and it's something I've been thinking a lot about lately, and especially with what happened to Shep, and he and I talked about that today. It might not be so much ratings anymore, although those are important, and if you've got good ratings in radio, that helps the sales staff sell. It's a tangible number that prospective advertisers can look at as a measure of, is this person reaching listeners and potential customers? So I don't want to ever diminish the value of ratings via Nielsen and so forth, no matter what market you're in. That said, you're right in that relationships matter, I think, more now than ever. And within a radio station in particular, if you are a program director or you're working with one, you want to generate the best show possible, but you've got to get in front of people, whether that's through charity events or public appearances or tying yourself in with other sports events going on, calling high school action that's local and means something to the people in that community, being a visible, tangible, present person within the community that you serve. That is the only thing that's going to set you apart from, say, a Mike and Mike in the morning that could give two craps about the listeners of Detroit, whereas I do. And I care about the teams that the Detroit fans care about. And if they feel that empathy, that connection, I think people are going to support you whether or not the ratings are high or low. And then you're right, if you bolster those relationships with your sales staff, if you say to them, hey, look, you got a meeting with a client, you need me there, I'm there. You don't expect anything in return. You're just doing what's best for the station, for that show. You show that you're a team player. You show that you're willing to go above and beyond and really forge that bond and helping the product be profitable and generating revenue. If you're committed to that, I think it is absolutely imperative in order to survive right now in 2017 modern communication technology.
Now, this may be a tough question, but we've all talked about it based upon what we're seeing with media, what we saw at ESPN, what we're seeing in sports radio. But do you think that purely sports talk can be viable as just a radio show talking sports without implementing social talk, politics, entertainment? Because it just seems like you, as a radio station, if you're looking at it from a programming side, you just want to get as many eyeballs as you can. And if you can have a show where you talk about sports and you talk about things that are entertaining and you talk about politics, might as well maybe open it up to a lot of subjects, maybe as opposed to just one.
I think you're going to alienate people whether you go too far in one direction or the other. And I understand that 100% hardcore sports content around the clock maybe isn't everybody's cup of tea. That said, I know a lot of people who are very frustrated by the tangents that, say, 97.1 goes on, albeit they're very successful, and Mike Valenti gets better ratings than anybody in this state. So with all due respect, I say this, but there are hardcore sports fans that I think wanted to be served in the way that Matt Shephard was delivering his morning show. I think it's a lot harder to do in morning drive radio in that time slot over the airwaves. People are just looking for something a little different. But any other day part, be it middays or afternoon drive, I think people are more in gear, in tune to get ready for that night's action and give me the latest information. How is this going down? And in doing that, and what I've tried to do, you've got to be intertwined with everything social media platform related, Facebook, especially Twitter, what's breaking. Can we further that discussion? Can you see something on Twitter and say, that's interesting, and then turn on the Schuiling Report and go, Ryan's going to take this the next step. He's going to have Justin Rogers on from the Detroit News, and they're going to talk about this breaking Lions news, and Justin has direct access to the franchise as a beat writer. That's where I'm coming from. That's my angle, in that I have to be able to augment a person's day-to-day social media experience, getting their information instantly. I've got to try to stay ahead of that curve. I'm on Twitter almost 24/7 because I can't get caught off guard and I can't get left behind, or I'm no longer relevant in terms of my place in this whole mosaic. So as I prepare for the Tigers game tonight, I got to know that Miguel Cabrera is coming back. I got to know what the lineup looks like. I got to know how close J.D. Martinez is coming back. And then I got to talk to the people who know even more than I do, because I don't know everything and I can't know everything from my position as a sports talk show host to again, propel that conversation forward and get to the bottom of even more information. So I think when you have that mindset, can just hardcore, pure sports talk work? Yes. I think it can, if it's done right, if the person doing it is passionate and knowledgeable and entertaining, and if they kind of acknowledge that they don't have all the answers and they need to pull from other sources, whether that are experts like I'm talking about, or the very listeners and followers themselves that I think in a lot of ways have a lot to say. And I try to engage in that conversation online as well. I think if you're going to commit to this, you got to go all in. You got to be 100 miles an hour, and it's really hard to take a day off without losing some of that momentum.
Ryan Schuiling, host of the Schuiling Report. All I can say is if you do good work, people are going to find you. I always enjoy conversating with you. I honestly want to give you a compliment. Your interviews are great. If you're looking to learn how to interview people and how to have good conversations, you have to listen to the Schuiling Report on 92.1 FM. Check out the SchuilingReport.com. That's SchuilingReport.com. Ryan's always a friend of the podcast. We enjoy his conversation, his insights, and I enjoy having conversations with the likes of those in the know. Thank you so much, Ryan, for your time. And all we can say is continue to do the great work and let the chips fall where they may.
Guys, keep on plugging away. You do a great job with this podcast. I'm always happy to be a part of it. Vito and John, you're welcome to join me anytime online as well. Let's engage in some discussion.
Thank you much. Have a good one.
All right, guys, you too.
What an interesting conversation with Ryan Schuiling. Always enjoy his perspective, his takes. And if you're in search of a fine radio program, middays, 1 to 3 p.m., go definitely check out The Team, 92.1 FM in Lansing. You can also listen live online. Check out the Schuiling Report daily, a great radio program. Thanks again to Ryan Schuiling for coming on this podcast. And thanks to Bernard Scott, Detroit Mercy women's basketball coach, for sharing some insights regarding coaching women's basketball. Let's take our first time out. Come back. We got some topics to talk about regarding Jim Harbaugh. Stay with us. You're listening to Two Bad Hombres on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. All right, Vito, let's talk about our host site, Podomatic. When we first started this project, one of the things that I needed to know was, how do you take your audio that you record and put it up to the internet? So all I did was go to Google and search uploading audio easily. And one of the first sites that popped up was Podomatic.com. Podomatic is our host site, and through our work with Podomatic, we've been able to put up 500 to 600 podcasts with no trouble at all. Podomatic's user interface is so easy and friendly. I've showed every guy here on the network how to upload podcasts, and they'll tell you. If you ask Vito, if you ask Adam, if you ask Jason or Jerry, they'll tell you within 5 minutes you can put up your podcast to the internet. And so we spend our time having fun, planning. Not too much time is spent on uploading our audio. All we got to do is take the audio, go to Podomatic.com, and boom, our project, our audio is up to the interwebs, and it gets on iTunes, and it gets heard by the masses. And so that's why I'm a strong supporter of Podomatic. It's easy, it's user-friendly, and should you have any problems at all, you just contact them, and boom, they address your concerns right away. The crew over there at Podomatic has been awesome. So since we started this project, we've only had one user site, and that's Podomatic. So listen to the doc. If you want to start a podcast and you want to get your project up and to the internet very quickly, Doc suggests one site, Podomatic.com. All right, Vito, my goodness. Last week, if you didn't know, Michigan took a trip to Italy, and everybody covered it. The Detroit News sent some reporters, ESPN sent some reporters. Many people were talking about it and looking at, look, the media industry, like Ryan talked about with us earlier, with the recent firings, budget cuts, many people were wondering, like, how are these networks going to cover and send so many people to Italy, which can't be that cheap, and cover something so kind of minuscule as a trip, a recruiting trip, a vacation, or whatever they were trying to do and accomplish over there in Italy? How are newspapers going to go and cover it? Now, I understand why. It generates clicks. Anything that Harbaugh does is vastly looked at, but to cover the actions of a football team going on a trip was interesting to me. I didn't really look at it too much. Now, obviously, when Michigan went to meet with the Pope, that's newsworthy, but all in all, I don't think sending reporters was actually worth it to go cover it. Did you follow it at all? I didn't click but maybe more than once on any of the articles covering Michigan.
Well, I saw some gladiator fighting between Coach Harbaugh and Drevno.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, so it's a lot of fun. It's very gimmicky. And Marty Smith was there from ESPN. It was just humor hour, laughing it up. Nothing serious news, no serious content. And the thing is, journalism is dying, huh? You can use that phrase when you see all that kind of stuff. ESPN sends Marty Smith, who is a journalist, is a legit reporter, reputable reporter. But the thing is, he's going to cover that. And what exactly, guys, as you kind of already inferred or pinpointed, Doc, was he covering? What exactly was it? It was a sideshow that ESPN, the Free Press, the Detroit News were covering. And I know the Free Press didn't send Mark Snyder. Their columnist, Jeff Seidel, went. But still, employees of these news outlets who make some money, who have to be paid big money to finance these trips, are being paid to go over to Italy to cover what? What was it really?
So step one, you don't agree that they should have sent reporters and many people and you don't feel like it was justified to go cover that?
It's stupid stuff. It's gimmicky. It's not true journalism. But I'm going to make a but here. I get why they do it. You already brought it up yourself. Well, it's about the clicks, the traffic, the attention, what's going to go viral. And guess what? Marty Smith has that sense of humor where everything it seems like he does in segments for reports on SportsCenter or whatever show it may be on ESPN or ESPN2 and the ESPN family of networks. Whatever he lays his hands on and does, it ends up being gold and going viral. So it seems like they know what they're getting out of him. And when they send him to an event to cover an event, and they're getting the most bang for their buck when it comes to Marty Smith covering something like that, which is very gimmicky and not true groundbreaking or hard-hitting journalism. So for me, for ESPN, well, they have a ton of money, right? Supposedly they used to, maybe not as much anymore. So you're saying, you can look at it this way too, if you're a disgruntled former employee that just got let go in those major ESPN layoffs, you're looking at that, what Marty Smith just got the chance to do in Italy, of all places, and then you got laid off from your job doing true journalism? So I would be disgruntled and fiery, all fired up about that if I was one of those employees that got laid off and I'm seeing Marty Smith go to cover that. I'd be like, ESPN, you lied to me that you didn't have any money to pay me anymore to be an employee at your network.
See, Vito, ESPN has money. They bring in a ton of money. The problem is what they're trying to do is lessen what's going out. You got to remember, these companies have what's called it's called operating income, meaning that they have money that comes in, but they also have operating expenses. So if they know their expenses are going to start elevating, they have money in the bank. It's just they want to stop the bleeding. So, for example, like in 10 years, if they profited like $10 billion, but in the last 3 years, they're operating at like a $4 billion loss, they still have $6 billion in the bank. They want to stop the bleeding, to stop the operating losses so that they can continue to, get back to being more profitable. So that's where this is kind of a question, is that where is ESPN's loyalty and where is ESPN at? Because you're exactly right. Look what happened. They cut 100 people, right? But in the last week, they've added 2 new people. They've added staffers. They've added Adrian Wojnarowski. This is a guy that's probably going to be very highly paid. And on the NFL side, they went and hired Rex Ryan to be a studio analyst. So you're telling me that you're going to hire 2 new people at the same time, cut 100 journalists. So it does seem like they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. But Vito, you got to realize ESPN's not broke. They're just trying to shed costs, and you're still going to hire people. But in my opinion, sending reporters to Italy is probably not worth it. But if you're a Michigan fan, you're telling me you're a Michigan supporter. I'm not, to put that on the table. But you're a Michigan supporter. You didn't soak up that much of the coverage in the last week on any front.
I saw stuff on Instagram, on ESPN through Marty Smith, but I wasn't reading articles or columns from Jeff Seidel, who I think wrote a column about how it was different or weird what they were going through, and if you wanted to call it a true practice, what they were doing in Italy, and it was just all weird to me. But you know what? The students, guess what they benefit? They get to view Italy, go to the Vatican. It was very beneficial, and the University of Michigan had to fund it, but I think it was worth it. Not that it was necessary or something that should be happening every single year, a trip like that is financed for the U of M football team to go to different countries like that. But to answer your question more fully, more in depth, I didn't really get a lot out of it. I didn't read a lot of the content or view a lot of the content, besides for the gimmicky stuff here and there, which was legitimately funny. And guess what? It's getting eyeballs. Those videos are getting eyeballs. That, spots that ESPN did with Marty Smith there, live from Italy. He was driving around on a moped, I think, around this circle for like 5 minutes talking, doing a live spot while driving on this moped. And had a guy in a car right next to him recording or filming all this while he was doing his live spot on SportsCenter one of these mornings. I mean, it's gimmicky, but you put that on, the interweb the next day or the same day, and guess what? You get hits. You get eyeballs looking at these videos, and that's drawing people then to ESPN's website, to ESPN.com, and drawing ESPN attention. And I guess that's the way of doing things now. You've seen it in entertainment, in that industry, with something such as The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon. Guess what he's doing? All of his bits and skits are based on what? On how many people can I get to watch this the next morning, right? If it's really noteworthy and they think they can draw a huge amount of people to watch it the next morning, they're going to do that skit on The Tonight Show. And on all these shows, sports or entertainment, they're going to do skits and segments now, Doc, and I think you understand this yourself, and hopefully people listening understand this. They're going to do segments largely that get the eyeballs the following day, or even the same day online.
So obviously, we all know Jim Harbaugh draws attention, but journalistically, you're a guy that took journalism classes. Is it something where you say to yourself, okay, and in my studies in the last couple of years, I've been kind of interested, as you know, in the journalistic field as to what's ethical, where the journalism field is headed. Do you feel like in the old days that this is something that would have been covered in the old days? Or do you say to yourself, you know what, this is a new era. We have to draw eyeballs in any way that we can. And if that involves covering Michigan and anything obscure regarding Jim Harbaugh, if Jim Harbaugh driving cars or Jim Harbaugh shopping is something that draws clicks, you have to cover it. Is that something you just say, you know what, knowing the landscape of getting clicks, of what draws attention, what's hot, if Jim Harbaugh is hot, is it worth it to then start covering obscure things that he's doing?
In what way hot? Because I don't think his dad bod is hot. Just to clear that up. I know what you mean.
Meaning like if you know that he's going to start going to Chick-fil-A, or if you know that he's shopping at Somerset, do you send people out there to start, following him around and see what he's interested in? I mean, we know about pants, we know about some reporters, and I think we should talk about what Brad Galley did, because many people think it's unethical regarding what Brad Galley did and sending him a gift, a guy that you're covering.
Probably wouldn't have happened back in the day on Channel 4, Channel 7, or Channel 2, or any sports network or whatever it may be, news outlet.
So in essence, you see a blurred line between journalistic integrity, the true definition of journalistic integrity, and hey, doing what you got to do to survive in this day and age.
Well, to get the most eyes on something, you have to be entertaining, have to be interesting. And guess what? you know, like what ESPN did, what Brad does at Channel 7, what all those guys do at these different stations and networks. It's about drawing eyes to their product. The way of doing that nowadays, well, you kind of have to ham it up. And guess what? You're going to do that with Jim Harbaugh because of the fact that he's one of those few rock star head coaches in all of sports, collegiately or professionally. There's not many rock star coaches that draw that much attention and that many eyeballs on a daily, a freaking every single day basis. What other coaches can you say that about? MSU's Mark D'Antonio. Do you think anybody's going to see him at a Chick-fil-A if he's out there? Or anybody going to send reporters to go cover that he's there to try to get a soundbite? Well, guess what? You're not going to get something interesting out of him. Harbaugh is so eccentric, you might just get a very interesting soundbite out of him in the clear blue. On a day where there's no football-related activities or events going on, you might be able to go somewhere where he is, hit him up, and get a quick, very interesting soundbite. And guess what? Because he's kind of a ham himself and very eccentric, it's going to get hits and draw eyeballs ultimately. And that's what these news outlets are ultimately worried about nowadays. And that's why you're seeing journalism dying a bit, not totally, still some true journalists out there. Adrian Wojnarowski, you brought him up from the vertical of Yahoo Sports, Yahoo Sports' former NBA blog, now going, to ESPN, who is paying now Adrian Wojnarowski all this money to break news for ESPN's NBA coverage. So those guys are true journalists. They're not going to die out. But if you are a true journalist, you better be able to break news, bring some very noteworthy inside scoops to the table, because if you're not, you better be a ham. You better be humorous, sarcastic, and able to draw people in that way through entertainment. And ESPN, remember, does stand for that as well. It's not just about journalism all the time. And definitely it's not when you have First Take on, right?
So there are blurred lines, and I think there are some people, though, that are hardcore into journalistic integrity, and we know who they are, but they just are really focused on, this is the letter of the law. It's not journalistic to give Jim Harbaugh, a person that you're covering, a person that you're writing reports about, give him a gift as a reporter. So to give a little context, and I'm a fan of Brad Galley, I'm a fan of everybody over there at WXYZ, and especially in their sports department. But to talk about what Brad Galley did was, obviously Jim Harbaugh wears khakis, and he's very interested in his attire, and people talk about it, they speculate on, the khakis that he wears, and da-da-da-da-da, and things like that. Well, Brad Galley, gave and gifted Jim Harbaugh a new pair of khakis that he believed to be more comfortable. And many people, once they saw that, had said, just in terms of journalistic integrity and the true letter of the law as a journalist, he probably wasn't supposed to do that. And for me personally, I agree, because how can you truly be objective if you're gifting things to the person that you cover? And then that's the whole point of journalistic integrity is that as a journalist, you don't want to be part of the story. You just want to cover the facts and give people insight. And what Brad Galley did was make himself part of the story by giving Jim Harbaugh a gift. Am I wrong?
I would definitely say so, because think about the old school newscasters and sportscasters. Would they have done that? Like Al Ackerman, who came up with the phrase, bless you boys, coined that phrase. He was a hard-nosed, hard-fighting journalist. He wanted the hard-hitting news, and he was going to cover it in that way in terms of trying to get the hard-hitting tidbits and facts from his sources, from his subjects of interviews. He was going to attack you with hard questions, not softball questions, or give you a pair of pants. It'd be like almost sleeping with the enemy, right? Like you're covering this person, or, in terms of fighting somebody and going after it. Well, you're going to fight against them, but at the end of the night, you're still going to end up in bed beside them. Like, after all the fighting you do to try to win something important to you, to prove a point, for a cause. You're fighting for a cause, and you end up with that person at the end of the night. I view it like that, and the lines of journalism and ethical journalism are blurry. They have become blurry, and I think you see it with that clear-cut example of Brad Galley and what he's doing, giving khaki pants to Jim Harbaugh, a guy that he's covering and interviewing a lot during the football season. It doesn't add up to me, and it's not journalism. That's Brad Galley being an entertainer. And guys like that, they look up to Jimmy Fallon, those guys too, and what they're doing, who are pure entertainers. They are stand-up comedians, and once again, pure entertainers. They're not journalists. You see Jimmy Fallon on his, on the Tonight Show, he's rubbing the hair of Donald Trump on set during a segment before Donald Trump got elected to become president. Think about that. If we're taking tidbits from those guys, well, they're just trying to be funny and trying to go viral. Well, that's not journalism. That's not hard-hitting stuff, hard-hitting questions that should be asked by a true journalist.
Now, Vito, you're fresh out of college. You earned your journalism degree. What are they teaching you in terms of proper journalistic integrity? Are they talking about entertainment? Are they talking to you guys about, in your education, about getting yourself over and potentially blurring that line? Do they address it with you guys? Do you have open forum discussions about the field like you and I do, bantering back and forth? Because for me, I look at it and I say, I'm not a journalist.
You're not. Heck no, you're not.
I'm not a journalist. I'm I'm an opinionist is what I am.
You are.
I'm a person that just gives my opinion and try to be entertaining and try to draw an audience. And so for me, I do like the journalism field. I do like getting reports and covering facts and stuff like that. But I also like to add a spin on things. I like to give my opinion. So I like to think of myself as kind of a hybrid, like columnist, opinionist, entertainer, podcaster, blogger, all mixed into one. And so in school, are they teaching you like you have to kind of decide or make sure you decipher what you are? Or do they say, look, if you can blend all of it and get yourself over and get yourself a following, just do whatever?
Well, they don't teach you anything that we've done here, okay? This isn't, well, you know what? Think about it. We're podcasters. What are podcasters typically? There are journalists that do podcasts, but there's also entertainers, comedians. How many people you see venture into podcasting that aren't even close to journalists, aren't even close to reporters or writers, right? It's like you and I. Now, I'm a writer. I have that journalism background, but really what I've done the most of now is probably podcasting, right? I'm probably no more for this, for the following of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, than for writing an article for the Free Press. So technically, I'm intertwined between being an entertainer and an interesting podcaster, let's say, and a journalist. I really am in the middle of that. Now, what I went to school for wasn't truly that, but what gets you noticed nowadays? It's really about that. What's the best way of getting noticed? Is being multidimensional, being funny, and being entertaining. So if we're able to be entertaining, we're going to draw more people in to our product too, and that's what we're aiming for here.
Is there a word that you can think of that encompasses everything, like a little bit of journalism, a little bit of comedy, a little bit of entertainment, a little bit of reporting, a little bit of everything? Is there a word that you can think of? Or like, is it okay that you think that the line is blurry?
I think it is. I think it's all right because of how the trend is now, the way or direction that we're going in towards with newscasters, journalists. It's where you have to do video. You have to be funny, have some funny outtakes at times regarding topics.
I think about that sometimes. I wonder if Walter Cronkite would ever be on Twitter.
Oh, he'd probably be dying looking at all the stuff that's become journalism.
Yeah.
He would probably die looking at it.
The best would be Walter Cronkite puts out a tweet and you got the first tweet under, die, old man, suck a fat one, old man.
He wouldn't be able to keep up probably with the Joneses nowadays, but those guys were true traditional journalists. So traditional journalists are kind of dying out. That field, that genre of journalism, that traditional hard-hitting journalism is kind of dying out. So you can still be a journalist and report the facts, but we have to report now the facts and be entertaining, be interesting.
Exactly.
It's even more difficult now. Where those guys back then, they were dry, dull, but they delivered the news. That's all you had to do. It wasn't about being the most interesting. Now it is, because you got to keep up with the Joneses and these other people that have their own platforms and own shows, whether it be on TV, on the radio, or online. And they're going viral, these guys that are interesting. If you're just dull and straight to the point with your facts now and delivering of facts, you're not going to go viral, and you're probably not going to keep a job. And maybe that's what happened with those ESPN employees, too. They got laid off. They're not as interesting, as entertaining, or don't have as big of a following, which is probably because they're not as entertaining or interesting, so they got laid off. They had to bite the bullet and lose their jobs subsequently.
And I think people are realizing it. Journalists are realizing it, and they're really coming to terms with the fact that, oh boy, the traditional field of journalism is dying. And that's what it is. And I think that's what we can take away from these last couple of weeks, is that the field of journalism is evolving right before our eyes. There are people that are hardcore, and they're still trying to wonder what's going on, and they're commenting, like myself, on the coverage of Jim Harbaugh, because we still want the age-old adage. We kind of want the best of both worlds. We want real journalism, but unfortunately, you can't monetize it too well. You can't really get a ton of clicks when you're just a pure journalist. You have to have some entertainment. You have to have some kind of hook. You have to have a way to get people to get, your attention. You could be the best journalist in the world, but if you've got 5 Twitter followers, it ain't going to get you anywhere.
You're done. And there's some great writers that are much better than me. I even know it, but it's about your connections, how entertaining you are when you deliver the facts and write your stories. And like us talking right now, can those people that are good journalists talk like us and make it interesting? I think we're making it interesting and be entertaining. There is an art to that as well. And until you perfect that craft, well, you're probably not going to maybe have the best jobs or the jobs that you desire. So sad but true, those traditional journalists, old school, hard-hitting journalists, You know what they have to do? They have to adapt now and become multidimensional. They have to become more interesting and funny and entertaining. If they're unwilling to, they're going to lose their jobs more and more. And that's just a fact of life, which is sad, but very, very true at this point, Doc.
Vito, great podcast. I know we want to talk a little bit about marijuana and sports, but unfortunately we talked a lot about Jim Harbaugh and the coverage of the Michigan trip to Italy, and we had two great guests. So let's table it again and continue to do our research regarding, the whole notion of drugs in sports and especially marijuana. I want to thank our guests again, Ryan Schuiling, Coach Bernard Scott, Detroit Mercy Titans women's basketball. Any fun plans for you the rest of the weekend?
Just, you know what? I'm going to try to be funny. Try to be entertaining with probably friends and family. How about you?
Same thing, man. Just have a good time. Continue to review the Lions draft, see what the Tigers are doing, see how the week went for them in terms of their big series versus Cleveland. I'll be fascinated regarding the news and notes. Maybe try to get some deals on some of these concerts I saw that were on sale for $20 this summer. See what's going on around town. One thing, though, I am kicking myself a little bit in that I read the reviews of the Chris Rock show. Everybody that went to see it is raving about it, that he just was like unbelievably funny.
He's a legend.
He's a legend.
What happened with you with going? Now, you mention that you wanted to go?
I might have wanted to go, and I maybe even suggested it to the missus, but we got a lot of things going. 2 kids' birthday parties to plan for. My wife's birthday's coming up. We just leased a brand new car, so a lot of things are going down. So we just said, you know what? In terms of our extra money that we wanted to allocate, we wanted to put it towards the kids and not our own personal self-interest. So that's what happened.
And look at you. And now I need more of that, done for me, where you're not thinking about your own self-interest and you're thinking about my best interests. Right?
I am, Vito. If you paid attention throughout the course of the podcast and what I've told you to do, I think it would lead you to success. So you just got to listen. Because otherwise, you might be having a notice in a meeting with the doc pretty soon.
Oh, I want to get laid off. I'm probably be the only layoff as well, I bet. Now, I guess you can't get laid off, though, huh? Unless you lay off yourself. But that's not going to happen. Stranger things have, but I got to predict that's not going to happen.
Vito, I want to leave you with this. This is a final thought from the doc. When I look at and review the happenings in the past week at ESPN, what happened to Matt Shephard, and kind of what's happening across the board in the sports media industry, everyone's kind of looking like, oh my gosh, there's so many cuts. There's so much competition. What's going to happen with this field of sports broadcasting? What's going to happen in the media field? And here's what I say, and here was my thoughts on it. It's really hard to do on Twitter in the span of 140 characters. I just bet on myself. That's what I always believe in. And if you're a guy like yourself and you're just up and coming, I would just bet on yourself. Try to do your own thing like you're doing here on the podcast network. I feel like a guy like Matt Shephard should have put out a podcast the next day after he was fired. And I believe that. You should really bet on yourself, because if you're reliant upon another company and you're reliant upon somebody else to pay you and to take care of you in terms of your career, unfortunately, in the business world, it's cold-blooded. Not just in sports media, but in the world in general. It's a cold-blooded world. And in my time, I worked for, quote-unquote, the man for 10 years. And then I went into business for myself. It was hard, but in the end, it was way worth it. I probably couldn't go back to work for somebody else because I make my own schedule. I bet on me. If I'm a good psychologist, then I get clients and they continue to work with me. If I do good podcasts, then we could have the network continuing to go strong since 2013. I'm of the opinion that if you're going to work for somebody, always have in the back of your mind, you could be here today, gone tomorrow, and that loyalty is a dying thing in anything. But if you bet on yourself, if you work hard and you create something that's lasting for yourself, I think it's a little bit more rewarding than relying on the man to take care of you. Because look what happened. A guy like Ed Werder put in years. A guy like Jay Crawford, decades, 17 years at ESPN, gone. Just like that, at the whim, just like that. Here today, gone tomorrow. Look at Matt Shephard. I don't even think he was able to do a final show. Here today, gone tomorrow. And in the journalistic field, oh my God, man, it's super tough in the field you're getting into. So if you remember nothing from the time you spend with me, bet on yourself, because if you can start a business, if you can do something on your own, it's really rewarding, the stuff that you can lay down and the stuff that you can achieve if you go into business for yourself.
Try to make a name for yourself on the side. Try to make some money for yourself on the side.
I'm going to give you a homework assignment. In 3 months, I want you to launch vitochurko.com.
Oh, that's easy. I'll do that.
Launch it. I want you to launch it. I want you to write stuff. I want you to start getting your own donations and kicking back a little bit to the doc. But I want you to start your own thing, and I want you to showcase yourself because you're a talented dude, and I want you to bet on yourself because you never know. The Vito Churko Network might launch, and you could be like, Bill Simmons and have me on as a contributor and start paying me instead of the other way around.
Or I would buy you out and buy out the Detroit Sports Podcast Network and become the CEO and all that stuff as well.
So that's your homework. Bet on yourself. Do your own thing. create your own website. VitoChurko.com has to be launched by the summer. It has to be a good launch, too. Don't do it rushed. Start the process of getting your own website and doing things yourself, because then maybe you can come to me with a bill and say, look, I'm an independent contractor. I have this many views. You got to do some things. So
pay up. Finally, pay up. And give me some advertisers, or maybe some advertisers just sign on with me. As we've tried now, we both have numerous times to get some advertisers.
Hard. We're doing it.
We are.
And that's what we got to do. We're still in the ground phase of teaching people about podcasts, but I'm always of the opinion you bet on yourself. And a guy like you, with the talent that you have, you'll do some good things. So definitely launch VitoChurko.com by August 1st.
And also, I think it's important to do that because you create your own brand, right? And personalities are wanted nowadays. People want to see your personality, and that's a way of expressing my personality. And others that do that, develop their own websites and write on their own websites, maybe do a podcast on their own websites. They're expressing their personalities via those, different platforms too.
Great podcast. Thanks for listening to my final thoughts. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Doc. Have a good one, guys. Adios.
Get fly. I got 6 jobs. I don't care.